Hey everybody, I'm Bede, aka the Terrible Australian at supermarcy.com, and welcome to the 11th edition of my 2015 MIFF video reviews. For this one, I will be reviewing the Iranian docu-drama TEHRAN Taxi, and as well as the indie drama The End of the Tour. So let's get right into it. Now, as I stated in previous videos in the past, I will be reading the synopsis for both these films from this year's MIFF program. So, as you already know, so that way I won't mess up the what the films are about. So, let's get right into it. Now, first up, of course, is TEHRAN Taxi. Since his ban from filmmaking in Iran in 2010, Jafar Panahi has smuggled out the acclaimed This Is Not a Film and Closed Curtain while under house arrest. His third film, Ekklef, and his most upbeat, circumvents those restrictions again to bring his filmmaking to the people by driving passengers around in Tehran in a camera-equipped taxi. Taxicab Confessions by the way of Kiarostami's 10, Panahi, in disguise as a cabbie, captures a lively and revealing snapshot of Iranian society, mixing the comedic with the political and blurring the director's beloved boundaries between fiction and reality. I haven't seen many, I have to admit, I haven't really seen much of Jafar Panahi's, sorry if I pronounced his name wrong, films in the past. It's weird though, because I've never really seen any of his films, but I've heard of them. Like when I sort of look past in his, filmography, when I look down, oh yeah, I've heard of this and I've heard of that, but I just haven't really got a chance to get around to watching them. So this is very much my very first film of his that I've seen. And one of the reasons why I wanted to check this out is that this film got a lot of great buzz out of the Sydney Film Festival. So for that I thought, okay, sounds really interesting, and reading the plot, it actually sounds pretty good. And I have to say, I thought this was a terrific film. Like, I really enjoyed this one a lot. I thought, what's interesting, the tone of it kind of reminds me a lot of another sort of MIFF favourite of mine that I saw a couple of years ago, Waja, which is a film that kind of sort of combines sort of this sort of crowd-pleasing sort of film but at the same time looks at sort of the political aspects of the country of where it's set as well. And this film kind of does that extremely well. Because one of the things I really surprised me the most about TEHRAN Taxi is just how really funny it is as a film. But at the same time, though, it's not like a full-on comedy. There a bit of drama in there as well. And at the same time, it also is a very insightful film as well, because it kind of shows us what the political side of things of Iran and how things are going there today. And what was really fascinating to me is the fact that, especially when it comes to cinema in Iran, and because in the film, there's a young girl who actually happens to be the director's niece, and she's in the film. Her character is doing a project for school. She's making a film, but the thing is, like, she wants to make a film, but the only way that she can do that is that it has to be a screenable film. So that, because in the country they have certain rules and guidelines for all people who are making films they have to make in Iran. And the film kind of shows the restrictions that filmmakers in Iran are facing these days, and the fact that the type of films that they want to make are basically being restricted, that they can't make the type of films that they want to make because of these rules that their government has forced them to abide by. And the fact that Jafar Panahi is a filmmaker who doesn't follow them at all, and the fact that it makes him a really brave filmmaker as well, because, for example, this film, like, even though as an international audience we're viewing it and praising it, this film is banned from Iran, and they won't even show it in the country because it goes against, it's not a screenable film. And at the same, which makes it a really fascinating watch. But at the same time, it's still an enjoyable film, and Pahani knows that. He wants to make a film that it sort of explores all the sort of, as I said, this explores the political aspects of Iran, especially when it comes to filmmakers. But at the same time, he wants to make it, enjoyable and funny and it at the same time. And what makes this film work is like at the times, what's funny though is like at the very beginning for a while while I was watching this film, I wasn't sure if I was actually watching a fictionalized film or am I watching a documentary, because this film kind of does a good job at sort of blurring the line between the two, because you're not exactly sure if it's real or not. And even so, I'm just sitting there going back and forth like what it is. I think in the end I think it is, like I said, I keep using the word docu-drama because I think that's what the film is. I think it's not, none of the stuff that happens in the film is real. But that being said though, it still, it does, even though it's not real, but it still works regardless, but that has an authenticity to it that does make it feel real. And of course, some of the passengers that the director sort of picks up along the way are fascinating characters, and each has their own kind of story, and whether it's something funny or something tragic and something political, Pahani just does a great job at showcasing all of that, just with these interactions with these different characters. And also the film ends on a really interesting note. Like some people might think the ending is a bit anticlimactic, but I actually think how it ends is actually kind of sums up of what Pahani is trying to say with this film. And I thought it was just great. And the more I sort of think about this one, this is the one I sort of look back and really like a lot. So I would say this one is definitely a must-see. I'm not sure when it's going to get released here in Australia, but once it does, go see it. It's a great film. If I had to give Tehran Taxi a rating, I would definitely give it a 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was that great of a film. Now moving on to the next film, which of course is The End of the Tour. And what is this one about? I shall tell you. Dave Lipsky is a struggling writer given an assignment of profiling author David Foster Wallace for Rolling Stone. As Wallace embarks on his publicity tour for his novel Infinite Jest, Lipsky is both jealous and in awe of Wallace, unexpectedly forging a connection with the man, acutely aware of his growing mythology. Now, I'm going to get accused by a lot of people for basically living under a rock. I honestly had no... I'm telling you the absolute truth. I never even heard of David Foster Wallace until I heard about this film being made, and I didn't realize like how much of a huge deal he is. And because when this movie was announced, a lot of people were kind of like, "Oh, this movie shouldn't be made. This film's not going to be an honest portrayal of David Foster Wallace." And I was kind of confused about it because, I mean, granted, I'd never even heard of the guy until this film was announced, but I've never read any of his work, so I don't know how much of a prolific author he was until I started hearing this kind of backlash from everyone. So in a way, I'm kind of judging this film solely on its own as a film, rather than whether it is a 100% respectful or 100% accurate sort of portrayal on real life author David Foster Wallace. But the thing is, though, I think a lot of people need to realize is that this film is actually based on a book that Dave Lipsky, who in the film is played by Jesse Eisenberg, it's based on his memoir. So this is him, of his point of view of David Foster Wallace. Anyway, the story is really more about Jesse Eisenberg's character than it is of David Foster Wallace. So I think if you kind of watch the film from that perspective, then I think, and as this kind of character who, as the synopsis says, is someone who's both jealous and in awe of this like huge successful author, then I think, you know, the film will work in that regard. But for me, I honestly thought the film did work a lot, and I really liked this film a lot. What I really liked about it is that it's more of like basically a movie about two people talking, and I just found that really entertaining and just really engaging as a film. And it helps that both Jesse Eisenberg and particularly Jason Segel, who plays David Foster Wallace, was fantastic, great. Particularly Jason Segel, who I thought was absolutely stunning in this film. This is, like, I always liked Jason Segel, and I thought he's a good comic actor, but I was kind of wondering how he would go in a sort of a very dramatic part, and I thought he just knocked us out of the park. I thought he was, I'm just going to put it out, I thought he was amazing in this film. Like, I don't know how accurate of a portrayal of David Foster Wallace his, you know, performance is, but for what I saw on screen, I thought he did such an amazing job. I didn't see Jason Segel, I just saw the character, and I just found what Segel brought to the performance was really interesting and complex, and brought a lot of humor and drama to the performance, and it was just pitch perfect. And it's a performance that, in my opinion, in a perfect world, would win an Oscar. That's how good he is. But also Jesse Eisenberg is no slouch either. He gives, even though yes, he's kind of playing sort of another sort of neurotic character we've seen him play in many times in the past, but he still gives this performance 110%, and he does a really good job as well. But to me, the film is really about the relationship between these two characters, and over the few days that they spent with each other doing this interview, and I just found it just really interesting and just captivating as a film. And and also the film was directed by James Ponsoldt, and if the name doesn't sound familiar, he previously directed the 2013 film The Spectacular Now, and that was a film I actually saw at MIFF 2 years ago. So, and I really liked that film a lot. So this was his follow-up to that, and I thought he did a really great job direction-wise, and I thought the script was beautifully well written, and I just found it a really engaging film, and I really like it when films are basically about two characters coming together and just chatting for most of it. I mean, if they're really interesting characters and they have a lot of interesting things to say, then to me, I just find that compelling as a viewer. The only sort of really negatives I can think of with this film is that it actually has a really strong supporting cast, because you've got Joan Cusack, Ron Livingston, was it Ron Livingston? Yeah, Ron Livingston, Mamie Gamer, Anna Chumsky. They're in this film, but unfortunately they're not really given much to do, and their characters are kind of they're only small parts in the film, but for what they're given, for most part, for what they're given and the time they spent, they do solid work regardless. But at the same time, I kind of wish there was a lot more with their characters, particularly Anna Chumsky, who I thought was kind of underused in the film as as Dave Linsky's girlfriend. But yeah, but to me, at the end of the day, it's really just about these two characters and their relationship with each other. That's kind of the key to this film. So yeah, I like I said, I recommend this one as well. I thought it's a great film, and one that I definitely recommend everyone to check out. So if I had to give The End of the Tour a rating, I'd give it about 4 out of 5. I really like this one a lot as well. So yep, that's the end of this 11th edition of my MIFF video reviews. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and keep a lookout very soon for my 12th edition, in which I'll be reviewing the teen coming-of-age comedy The Diary of a Teenage Girl, and as well as director Joshua Oppenheimer's latest documentary, The Look of Silence. So keep a lookout for that, and I'll see you guys all later. See everyone. Bye.